We are back on Morning Line. During the break, I was talking to Councilman Mendez about just the stadium issue, and we're going to talk about Ann's comment in a moment. But, you know, it's interesting that I don't know if the stadium in football, it's got maybe a very small part of it. We both know a lot of people that want to move to Nashville, join the club.
Right.
We see the city growing. But I don't know if Nashville's profile is up higher in some degree because of the football stadium. The best thing I remember when they first started playing, and the first night we finally hosted Monday Night Football, I watched at home. I didn't go to the game. And the bumps, you know, when they go to the commercial break and come back, showing the city. And let's face it, no matter what the city, they can always make it look great. But the way it looked, and I thought, there's bang for our buck. It's not necessarily quantifiable, but around the country, people are watching, and they're seeing these little bumps coming into the broadcasts showing, wow, that city looks great. Look at the bridges. Look at 2nd Avenue. Look, there's Tootsie's. I've heard of that. And it's just, and it looks so great.
Yeah.
I think that helps the profile of the city.
No doubt about that.
So Ann's comment, again, every time any talk is of something like investing in sports, people are going to bring up the comment she made.
Yeah, and especially this time around when we're not talking about just a stadium, but we're talking about essentially building a brand new neighborhood. Like, I don't know the number because the number hasn't been announced, but I understand that infrastructure for the neighborhood, not talking about the stadium, just the surrounding neighborhood, could be into the hundreds of millions.
For instance, then, just as you say that,
yeah.
We know the Sound Stadium right behind us here.
Right.
A neighborhood is built up around it. Now, you remember what was back there before that. There was nothing. Okay, the stadium's built, and it's minor league, but still, it's neat. Now, around that, all those condos back here, around the Bicentennial Mall and everything like that, that's kind of what I envision on a larger scale, maybe around the football stadium. Now, if they could do it, because there's some neat restaurants back there, really cool-looking condos, pretty darn spendy. Is that what you're talking about?
Right, except I would expect higher than there, like more height to the buildings than there is around the Sound Stadium. And the infrastructure piece, which goes to Ann's point, like the neighborhood around the Sound Stadium had water, sewer, electric roads already, and right now, like if you want to put a neighborhood next to the football stadium, you need roads. There's no water, there's no power, there's no sewer, there's no broadband, and you're building it from scratch. You know, like you know.
Yeah, there was no infrastructure there.
Legos the day after Christmas.
Yeah.
Like you just started from scratch, and so people are going to want to know, whatever that price tag is, like, what about my neighborhood? You know, what about the school in my neighborhood? Is this, if we have a couple $100 million to put infrastructure into a blank slate, then what about my neighborhood?
Yeah, the ones that are already here.
Yeah.
Is that where you as a council member and the council and the mayor as a whole have to decide, can we do both? Or, you know, you have to say, well, there's going to be a little here and a little there, and you have to divvy it up. It's not necessarily just one or the other.
Yeah, and this is, you know, at this point, I'm more spending energy on trying to think of a framework about how I'm going to consider the proposal whenever the proposal comes. But clearly, whatever the price tag is for infrastructure for a new neighborhood, we're going to have a conversation about whether that's the right place for that money. And you know, we got a big 500 square mile city. People are going to want to talk about whether it's the right thing to do.
Let's take a call from Ed. Ed, good morning. Hi, Ed.
Hey, hello, guys.
Hello.
I have a yes or no question. Was Nashville, Davidson County the only ones to get their property taxes raised to pay for the stadium? And then number two, the Predators were not the first hockey team in Nashville. Do you know who they were? I went to several of their games, and the reason people went to them was for the fights. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry Britton, who used to co-host this show with me, would tell me about going to the Nashville Knights games over at Municipal Auditorium. Yeah. So he is correct. I never had a chance to go. There was a time people went to hockey games to see fights.
Having grown up a Chicago Blackhawks fan, like I get that, the fights for sure. Well, I mean, I can't answer yes or no because property taxes weren't raised to pay for the stadium. That's not how the current stadium gets paid for.
Yeah. as far as the construction of the current stadium, again, I brought this up, and I don't know how it would work with the existing season ticket holders if there was a new stadium built and they just kind of move over to where they were at. They'd still pay their prices. The PSL was this thing that some other cities did to build stadiums, personal seat license. And basically that was where if you wanted to buy a season ticket, you also had to pay kind of a one-time user fee. And the range could be anywhere from $500 to maybe $5,000, just one time. And that money would go toward building the stadium, and then, of course, that gave you the option of paying then to buy your season tickets. That's a chunk of money right up front. But Tennesseans here in Nashville ponied up for that.
Yep.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that's even done anymore, if it would even be an option in this case, and if anyone would be willing to do it.
Yeah, I don't. That's a thing I haven't heard anything about one way or the other.
Okay, because I'm just thinking of trying to think of ways.
Over time, you know, the PSL prices on the market sort of depends on what the team's record was.
Oh yeah, it's really interesting. Early on when the Titans, of course, they came here with a splash, went to the Super Bowl real quick right after they moved in the stadium. There was a waiting list for PSLs.
Right.
Now, you can't give them away.
Right.
I mean, there's people still buying tickets, but the hunger, it's not like the Green Bay Packers where someone dies and they will their season tickets to their children. The Titans, and I think this is maybe true of a lot of sports teams, don't you think? It's not. And the Titans have been good the last 4 years. Look, if you're complaining about Titans have played very well the last 4 years. Disappointing they didn't make the Super Bowl. It's not a heck of a season. This is a good team with some great players, but there's not a waiting list anymore for PSLs.
Now, and you know, you mentioned we were one of the smaller markets in the NFL. With us being a small market and a great destination city, one of the biggest dynamics that we all know on tickets here in Nashville is whether there's price pressure from people from out of town. You know, whether it's the Steelers, the Bears, anywhere it's a big city. When the Jets come to town, like, you know, we get buried in New Yorkers who'll like apparently pay anything to go to get the tickets.
Yeah, but and you know what? You're right about this sports city, and when we talk about the size compared to Buffalo, Jacksonville, you know what the difference is? Is that we're right in that realm of the size, but all those towns just have one professional team. And I've often wondered, when we keep talking about, well, we're going to bring baseball too, and I understand we're maybe bringing a professional women's basketball team here, there's talk of that. How much of the sports fan dollar can go around? A lot of us are sports fans. I'd like to go to a football game, like to go to a hockey game, like to go to a soccer game. But it's like we have the Major League Soccer now.
Right.
We have the NHL, and we have NFL. Jacksonville, and we have the AAA baseball, a tier below, but Jacksonville's got the Jaguars. That's it.
Right.
The Bills have Buffalo and they have the Sabres. Okay, but I mean, in general, we, for the size, have probably more sports per capita than just about any city in the country.
That may be, and I do think women's professional basketball. If you made me bet next sport to come to town, I would bet women's professional basketball.
Is what they're talking about. I saw something like WNBA, maybe something along those lines. All right, let's go to Melanie. Melanie, good morning. Hi, Melanie.
Hi.
Hey, what's on your mind?
Good morning, Vic.
Good morning.
Yes, I live in Antioch, and I rarely go downtown. I mean, not even once a year, and yet. My property tax have gone up. The sales tax itself has gone up 0.25. They're building hundreds of thousands of new homes and apartment complexes, and yet the roads it's hard to dodge the potholes around here.
And some big ones.
I've contacted the councilwoman, and I feel like I'm living in a dump site because there's so much trash no matter where I drive around Antioch. But yet when all the property tax and all the sales tax was going up, it was because there weren't going to be any police or firemen or the teachers. And then I started hearing about all the things that are being done for downtown Nashville. So when is it that the people that are actually living in Davidson County that don't use all this downtown Nashville that's glitzy and brings all this money in, why do we keep getting punished and at a time of inflation where they have to have our money not to really help us, but to help downtown? So
Gotcha.
This is really an issue. So
Sure.
I don't know if anybody could ever listen to this and help, but I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels this way. Thank you for listening, Nick, and I really enjoy your program.
Thank you, Melanie, and is well said, and she is not alone. And there's an example then. She's out there. How do you address it? You kind of were talking about it. You know, they're going to say you're going to want to build a whole new neighborhood next to the stadium. What about Melanie and her situation out there in Antioch?
Listen, the easiest thing for me to do is I've got 18 months left in office before I'm term limited, and I could very easily sit around and wait for the Titans and the mayor's office to get to the finish line on whatever they're getting to the finish line on. And but I have written about this on my blog, and I'm talking about it now, and I've learned the terms of the lease and gotten in the weeds, because a generation ago, when we started working on downtown, the fundamental promise was, man, let's reinvent downtown so it can pay for the things we need to do as a city. Right. And we've delivered on the rebuilding downtown, but it's far from clear that it's paying for the things that we need to do. All the things that Melanie listed are real things that lots and lots of people feel and experience and know in their heart are true. And so if the deal with the city a generation ago was let's make downtown awesome to pay for the stuff we need to do as a city. Well, this is the same pitch now. Let's build a whole new neighborhood and a new stadium to pay for the things we need to do. And it rings hollow without getting some delivery, and particularly in the middle of trash pickup having problems and the roads looking like junk. It's a tough sell for a lot of folks.
You're so right. It's kind of like, we work so hard to attract more, and that's fine, but how about taking care of the people that are already here? And I think going back a ways, when Phil Bredesen was the mayor, and under him, we had Dell, I guess, and then of course we had the Titans deal come through, and we built that. And then when he left office, and I thought he did a great job, he really brought a lot of neat stuff to the city, but then he was replaced by Bill Purcell. And I still remember, and I didn't get to know Bill as well as I knew, Bredesen, but Purcell came in, and his thing was, okay, we've gotten all this new stuff. Let's focus on sidewalks, bricks and mortar, infrastructure, neighborhoods. And it was a nice combination going from one to the other, and he was right. We had done enough. Let's focus in on this now. I don't know where we really stand now necessarily, how it goes.
Well, and people can still debate it, but the Dean administration got through the 2008 downturn, which was horrible, with a massive public project, the convention center, which has, again, turbocharged. It brings us more hotels, more conventions, more people, and so there's a pretty good argument that downtimes is when government should be investing in infrastructure, because construction's cheaper. But you can't have growth just for the sake of growth. You got to deliver quality of life for people like Melanie.
And that's why I worry. We're at that edge of where we're going to decide if we go too far one way or the other, and the quality of life really suffers. We'll take a break. We'll be back. Our final segment, and take more of your phone calls for Councilman Mendez right after this.